1 hour and 43 minutes. That's how long it took to get Diana. Conscious, talking, alive, 4 miles to a hospital, and for 5 of those minutes, the ambulance wasn't even moving. It was parked, less than 500 meters from the emergency room doors, while Diana bled internally. Today, we're breaking down each minute of that night, the decisions that were made, the delays that piled up, the medical choices that Britain's top surgeons would later call devastating. What was the injury that killed Diana? An injury so rare that Britain's top pathologist said he'd never seen another one in his entire career. And why did France, 5 years later, quietly change their entire emergency medical protocol without ever admitting that a single mistake had been made? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those 103 minutes cost the world. If you've spent 27 years wondering whether Diana actually had to die that night, this video finally gives you that answer. The crash didn't kill Diana. The clock did. Let's go back to Paris. August 31st, 1997, 12:23 in the morning. Number 1, the crash. The Mercedes slams into the 13th pillar of the Pont de Alma tunnel, approximately 65 miles per hour. The front of the car crumples like it's made of aluminum foil, glass everywhere. The horn stuck blaring into the night. Henri Paul, the driver, dead on impact. His body slumped over the steering wheel. Dodi Fayed, Diana's companion, same thing. Gone before they even knew what happened. But Diana? Diana is alive. She's conscious. Her bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, is in the front passenger seat, screaming from his injuries, his face destroyed by the impact. And Diana, she's on her knees on the floor of the back seat, hunched over, fighting for each breath. The crash didn't kill her. Not yet. Not even close. Number 2, Diana's last words. A French doctor named Frédéric Méliès is driving home from a friend's birthday party. He's an emergency physician, off duty, just heading back to his apartment. He sees the smoking wreckage in the tunnel and pulls over. He walks to the car, opens the rear door, and he hears her. Diana is murmuring, repeating the same words over and over again. "Oh my God, oh my God." Then the photographers start arriving. They swarm around the wreck with their cameras, flashbulbs popping in the darkness. And Diana, even now, even like this, crumpled on the floor of a destroyed car, manages to say her final recorded words, "Leave me alone." Think about that for a second. 27 years of being hunted by cameras, chased through airports, stalked on beaches, photographed through windows, and her last words on this earth were about the paparazzi. Even in death, they wouldn't leave her alone. Number 3, the first responders' shock. Dr. Méliès had absolutely no idea who she was, none whatsoever. The car was destroyed, it was dark, and he just saw a young woman in serious trouble who needed immediate help. He said later, "She was on her knees on the floor of the car. She had difficulty to breathe. She needed quick assistance. The front passenger was screaming. He could wait a few minutes, but she couldn't." He sprinted back to his car, grabbed a respiratory bag from his medical kit, and ran back to Diana. With the oxygen helping her breathe, she seemed to regain a little energy, a little strength. But she couldn't speak anymore. Not a single word. Years later, this doctor would say something that still haunts him to this day. "I am probably the last person she heard." He spoke English to her in that tunnel, told her he was a doctor, told her help was on the way, told her to hold on. She couldn't respond, but she heard him. He's certain of that. Number 4, the sedatives. At 12:40 a.m., the official French emergency team finally arrives on scene. Dr. Jean-Marc Martineau takes over Diana's care from Maillet. And this is where things start getting complicated. At 12:45, they make a decision. They give Diana 2 powerful drugs, fentanyl and Hypnovel. The idea was to calm her down. She was agitated, moving around, clearly terrified and fighting to stay conscious. Here's the problem with that decision. Both of these drugs are known to cause heart and respiratory problems in certain patients, especially in someone who's already severely injured, especially in someone who's bleeding internally. American emergency expert Dr. Stanley Zidlow reviewed the case years later. When asked directly whether these sedatives could have made Diana's situation worse, his answer was careful but unmistakable. Could have. Yes, they could have. We'll never know for certain what effect those drugs had, but it's a question that never got answered. Not properly, not publicly. Number 5. Diana fights back. And Diana, she wasn't going quietly into that night. French doctors testified later that she was so agitated, so desperate, so determined to survive that she physically ripped out her own IV drip, tore it right out of her arm with her bare hands. Her body knew something was wrong. Each instinct she had was screaming at her, "Get me out of here. Get me to a hospital. Get me into surgery. Now." But they didn't listen to what her body was telling them. They kept treating her right there in the tunnel, on the side of the road, in the darkness, while the clock kept running, while the blood kept pooling in her chest. Remember that rare injury we mentioned? The one no pathologist had ever seen before in his entire career. We're getting closer to that. But first, you need to understand what happened next. Number 6, they removed Dodie first. Here's something that haunted investigators for years after that night. When the rescue teams finally started extracting people from the wreckage of that car, they removed Dodie Fayed first. Dodie was already dead. He had been dead since the moment of impact. There was nothing anyone on earth could do for him. He was gone. And yet, precious minutes Diana didn't have, were spent carefully removing his body from the wreck, while Diana waited, while Diana bled. Each minute counted that night, and minutes were being spent on a man who was already gone. Number 7, the ambulance stops. Okay, this is the part that changes everything you think you know about that night. The part that still makes people furious, nearly 3 decades later. After treating Diana in that tunnel for nearly an hour, they finally get her into the ambulance at 1:18 a.m., but they don't actually leave the tunnel until 1:41 a.m. 23 more minutes, sitting in an ambulance, in a tunnel, 4 miles from a hospital with surgeons ready and waiting. 23 minutes of treatment that could have happened in an operating room. And then, finally, the ambulance starts to move. But it's not racing through the empty streets of Paris. It's crawling, 12 miles per hour, so slow that photographers who were following behind could literally walk alongside it and keep pace. So slow that a person jogging could have beaten them to the hospital. And then, it stops. At the Pont d'Austerlitz, less than 500 meters from the hospital entrance, the ambulance just pulls over to the side of the road and parks. A photographer named Thierry Orban was following in a car behind. He testified later about what he saw. The ambulance stopped. The driver jumped out hurriedly and climbed into the back. The whole vehicle was rocking back and forth as if they were doing cardiac massage inside. Something had gone terribly wrong, and they were still 500 meters from help. Number 8, the desperate minutes. The ambulance driver, Michel Massabeuf, confirmed it in his sworn testimony. Diana's heart had stopped. Right there, 500 meters from the hospital doors, so close to help, so far from safety. For 5 agonizing minutes, they worked to bring her back. Cardiac massage in a rocking ambulance, fighting to restart a heart that was failing because of an injury they couldn't see and couldn't treat without a surgical team. 5 minutes that felt like an eternity to the people inside that vehicle. They got it beating again. They stabilized her enough to move. And then, finally, at 2:06 a.m., Diana arrived at Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital. 1 hour and 43 minutes after the crash, 4 miles from where she started. Alive, but barely. Her heart beating, but weakening with each passing second. Number 9, the clock. Let's add it up. Let's see where the time went. 12:23 a.m., the crash. Diana is alive, conscious, talking. 12:40 a.m. French emergency team arrives. 17 minutes gone, 1:18 a.m. Diana finally placed in ambulance. 55 minutes gone. 1:41 a.m. Ambulance leaves tunnel, 78 minutes gone. 1:55 a.m. Ambulance stops outside hospital. Diana's heart stops. 92 minutes gone. 2:06 a.m. Diana finally reaches operating table. 103 minutes gone. 103 minutes. To travel 4 miles. In a city with some of the best hospitals in the world. Number 10. What the British experts said. British surgeons were horrified when they learned the details, the timeline, the decisions, the delays that piled up while Diana bled internally. Dr. Tom Treasure, a cardiothoracic surgeon at London's Guy's Hospital, reviewed the case and said this: she needed to be in an operating room within 15 to 20 minutes of the accident. That's the window. That's when you have the best chance of survival. 15 to 20 minutes. Diana reached the operating table after 103, more than 5 times longer than the survival window. Another British surgeon, Professor John Kirkland, put it even more bluntly. The principle of treating serious bleeding is simple. You have to stop it, and you can only do that with surgery. You cannot do it in an ambulance. You cannot do it on the side of the road. You need a surgeon, a scalpel, and a sterile operating theater. Diana had none of those things until it was too late. Number 11. The injury no one had ever seen. Here's what was actually killing Diana while all those minutes ticked away. The injury that made this crash so devastating. The wound that no amount of roadside treatment could address. The impact of the crash had torn a small hole in her pulmonary vein, one of the major blood vessels connected to her heart. Blood was slowly filling her chest cavity, pressing on her heart, making it harder and harder for it to beat. Each minute that passed meant more blood in her chest, more pressure on her heart, less chance of survival. Dr. Michael Baden, one of America's most famous forensic pathologists, reviewed the autopsy findings. What he said about that injury has stuck with me ever since I first read it. Her specific injury is so rare. In my entire career, I don't believe I've seen another one. His entire career, thousands upon thousands of autopsies, decades of examining how people die, and he had never, not once, seen this exact injury before. A tiny tear in exactly the wrong place. That's what ultimately killed the most famous woman in the world. An injury so unusual that even experts with decades of experience had never encountered one like it. Number 12. Why the injury was survivable. And here's the part that makes all of this so incredibly devastating to think about. The pulmonary vein isn't like an artery. It doesn't pump blood out under high pressure. It's part of a low-pressure system. It receives blood flowing back to the heart. So when it tears, it bleeds slowly. It can even clot on its own, at least temporarily, buying precious time. Dr. John Oxner, one of the most respected cardiovascular surgeons in American medical history, explained exactly why Diana survived as long as she did. The reason Diana didn't bleed out right away is that the tear was probably clotting and releasing, and because the pressure in that part of the system is so modest compared to an artery. Diana had time. That's the cruel, unbearable, heartbreaking truth of it. She had time. Her body was buying her minutes, but those minutes were being spent in a tunnel, on a crawling ambulance, and parked outside a hospital where surgeons were standing ready. Number 13. The surgeons massaged her heart by hand. When Diana finally reached the operating table, the surgical team threw absolutely everything they had at saving her life. Nothing was held back. Nothing was spared. Professor Alma, one of France's most celebrated heart surgeons, was woken up at his home and rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night. He and the team found the tear in Diana's pulmonary vein. They sutured it closed. They stopped the bleeding. The repair was successful. The tear was fixed. The bleeding was controlled. The surgical technique was flawless. And then, For 2 straight hours, they massaged Diana's heart with their bare hands, physically squeezing it, trying to restart it, trying to bring her back from the edge. 2 hours of the most desperate, exhausting work a surgeon can do, refusing to give up, refusing to let her go. It wasn't enough. It didn't work. At 4 o'clock in the morning, 3.5 hours after the crash, Diana, Princess of Wales, was officially pronounced dead. She was 36 years old. Her 2 boys were asleep in Scotland, not yet knowing their mother was gone, not yet knowing their world had changed forever. The surgeon who first examined her when she arrived said she came in alive with a cardiac rhythm. She had a fighting chance, but by that point, too much time had slipped away. Too many minutes had been lost in that tunnel. Too many minutes spent crawling through empty streets. Too many minutes wasted. What you're about to hear explains why this tragedy satisfies no one who loved her, and why France quietly rewrote their own rules. Number 14, 2 systems, 2 outcomes. In America and Britain, emergency medical services follow a philosophy called scoop and run. The whole idea is brutally simple. Get the patient off the street and into surgery as fast as humanly possible. Speed saves lives. Delays kill. Studies show that trauma victims have the best chance of survival if they reach an operating room within 10 minutes of injury. 10 minutes, that's the target. That's the golden hour principle that has saved countless lives in emergency rooms around the world. France does something completely different. They call their approach stay and play. The idea is to stabilize patients at the scene, treat them in the ambulance. Take your time getting to the hospital because the hospital is coming to them. The philosophy sounds reasonable on paper, but for internal bleeding, for a torn blood vessel, it's catastrophically wrong. Dr. Philip Brewer, who was chief of emergency services at Yale University, said something about this that cuts right to the heart of what went wrong. The only way to stabilize someone with a major internal hemorrhage is to stop that hemorrhage. And the only place on earth you can do that is in an operating room. Diana needed a surgeon. What she got was a very expensive, very slow roadside medical clinic. And by the time she finally reached the operating table, it was too late. Number 15, France changed their protocol. 5 years after Diana died, in 2002, something quiet happened in France. Something that spoke louder than any official statement ever could. The French government changed their emergency medical guidelines, the very protocols that had been followed that night in August 1997, the procedures that had kept Diana in that tunnel for nearly an hour, the approach that had her ambulance crawling through empty streets at 12 miles per hour. No official spokesperson ever mentioned Diana's name in connection with the changes. No minister admitted that any mistakes had been made that night. No one from the medical establishment said the words, "We got it wrong." But CBS News confirmed what happened. In 2002, 5 years after her accident, the French emergency guidelines were changed. No comment from officials, no explanation to the press, no acknowledgement of what everyone already suspected, no apology to the family that lost a mother that night. Just a quiet rewriting of the rules. Actions speak louder than words. Many believe they knew exactly what those 103 minutes had cost the world. And 5 years later, they finally changed the protocol so that what happened to Diana would never happen to anyone else. Too late for Diana. But maybe not too late for the next person whose life depends on those precious minutes. 1 hour and 43 minutes. A tiny tear so rare that a pathologist with decades of experience had never seen another one like it. 70 minutes lost to questionable decisions, and a medical protocol that France would quietly abandon 5 years later. The crash didn't kill Diana. The clock did. But there's more to this story that most people have never heard. The surgeon who operated on Diana that night, who held her heart in his hands, who fought for 2 hours to bring her back. He stayed silent about what he saw for decades, wouldn't give interviews, wouldn't talk to journalists, wouldn't say a word about what really happened in that operating room until very recently. Click here to hear what Princess Diana's surgeon finally revealed after 25 years of silence. What he said about her final moments in that operating room changes everything you thought you knew about that night.